Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Free Thought Blog's Podish-Sortacast, in which we attempt to put together something vaguely resembling a podcast. And this month, the theme is festivals of various sorts. Because we're not very original, so yeah, that's what we came up with. I'm Dr. Sarah. I'm Sarah. I post as Dr. Sarah on the Geeky Humanist blog, and with me tonight are H.J. Hornbeck, who I believe posts on Reprobate Spreadsheet. Did I get that right?
You did indeed.
Excellent. Lovely, I've got it right for once. And Great American Satan, who posts on Great American Satan, also on Free Thought blogs.
Word.
And has excellent nails and a really striking backdrop. Is that a single piece of cloth, or is that multiple dresses hung up? I've been wondering.
Just one of those it's just some of those fleece blanket things you can order from Chinese weirdos. Pretty stock stuff.
Chinese weirdos with excellent artistic sense, my kind of people.
Or they just rip it off from Lisa Frank.
So today, or this month, or whatever, we're at a time of year generally associated in most places with festivals, and this is, of course, because it is a dark, cold, miserable time of year, and people generally have dealt with this by coming up with some form of festival involving lights, music, partying, etc. And I believe all of us here grew up with that particular festival being Christmas of some variety. Any dissent?
None, sadly.
I have them shaking their heads there. I grew up with secular Christmas and a very secular home. You know, we had a tree, we had presents, we had lots of food, and we did not do anything about religious aspects of it. Later, I grew up and joined group of Pratchett fans, and we celebrated Hogwatch Night, which will mean something to those of you who are Pratchett fans, and if you're not, why not go out and read Terry Pratchett's books immediately? Well, when I say immediately, after you finish watching our podcast, obviously. But there are a few other festivals, and one of the things that interests me is the way that different countries have different festivals and different meaningful dates. For example, with us we have Great American Satan from the great old US of A, where I am given to understand the 4th of July is a deeply important date. Satan, tell us about your memories of the 4th of July and your experiences.
Well, not a whole lot to say about that one. I mean, okay, so in the Anglosphere, I don't know how many different countries do this, but I know at least Canada and the United States blow things up to celebrate their country. So I mean, I guess that's just like every day in some spheres. But we blow up other countries to celebrate our country all year long. But we blow up
I'm talking about specifically the festival, where not the other 364 days of the year.
No, that's cool. I guess about a month before and after both the 4th of July and New Year's, people go get the fireworks from Indian Native American reservation site because they're illegal to sell in the rest of the country, and then they bring them back home, and then they blow off their fingers and set their houses on fire and scare pets and wildlife. It usually starts about a month before and goes a month after. The cool stuff is visually is the big bright fireworks where you see lights in the sky and stuff. The other side of that, though, some people just like the noise, and for that you get the quarter sticks of dynamite that you throw in dumpsters and stuff like that. I don't know, lately gun violence has kind of increased a lot, so that I'm probably starting to hear more guns than fireworks around those times, but to each their own. As far as like feeling like some type of way about the 4th of July, I don't really. I think mostly it's just people liking the summer. You know, they're all like, "Oh, this is the first time of the year when it's likely to be hot in most of the country, where you have an excuse to have a barbecue and junk like that, right?" So it's like less about caring about the country in any ways in a meaningful ways than it is about that. Um, yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is definitely something you have done better than our country. You've managed to have your great day of letting off fireworks at a time of year, and it's actually not bloody freezing cold. So I
No,
have
we do the New Year's the exact same thing at New Year's. So maybe just
true, but you
slightly
do have
smaller.
a major fireworks day on actual July. I mean,
They're
I'm
really
sure.
pretty comparable, actually. Like I'd say like maybe about 50% more fireworks in July, like, but they're really comparable.
Mm,
And the one they
uh,
actually show on TV is usually actually the fourth the New Year's one.
the point is, you have a day when you can a night when you can go out and watch fireworks, when it is not absolutely brass monkeys cold. And there have been many 5th of November evenings when this has occurred to me as a good system. If you were going to go get all rebellious and break away from us, you did it at the right time of year, guys. So yeah, speaking as someone from over here, our firework night is in November. I applaud your, this is clearly all planned in advance from the 18th century. You have a firework night and it's all nice and not freezing. That's what I assume anyway. Um, and HJ, you were just telling me that because Canada is relatively new, you don't have much in the way of particular uh, national festivals yet, and you're working on a couple.
No, no, it's nothing really sort of national per se. Naturally, we have an Independence Day. It's called Canada Day, where you celebrate, our genocide of the Native Americans and all that. The same basic deal as Fourth of July, same sort of thing. The one that I remember the most actually is the day I went for a hike on that day. That's basically just how much of an impression the day has made on me over the years. So there's not really much nationally, which makes a lot of sense. We do, however, have various local festivals and all that. I unfortunately tend to be sort of in the prairies, so we don't have much in that regard. But over in Quebec, they have a special called Bonhomme Carnival, which is sort of a really sort of fab winter festival overall. It's actually like I think over 100 years old or so. Although the modern incarnation, I think they're sort of celebrating the 70th anniversary of the modern version. But there are versions which date back to like 1894, which is like yesterday for Brits essentially. And it's more or less sort of
Yeah, yeah, you young whippersnappers, you.
indeed.
Sorry, do go ahead.
Yeah, it's basically it is a winter festival of sorts with more or less the pageantry you'd expect. They do have an official mascot. If you've ever seen Ghostbusters, you'll be getting sort of deja vu from it. But Bonhomme Carnival actually, I think, predates that one by quite a bit. What exactly the guy's name is, but yeah, it's basically just a giant snowman with a red cap. There's even like an official sort of way to wear your scarf during the season, which is okay, but
Mhm.
whatever.
And what's the official way?
I don't know what it is. Sadly, not being from a Quebecois, I cannot sort of comment too much on that. And yeah, they sort of have their own way of doing it. But yeah, there is a very distinctive way to use your scarf. But yes, being a festival, one thing they do have are giant ice sculptures, which they sort of set up and all, including like an actual like ice palace that they build every year. There's various parades. Also, reading off of the Quebec tourist thing and all that. They also have things like sort of a snow kind of thing, essentially where you just roll around in the snow wearing nothing other than a bathing suit. One of those whole sort of polar bear
Ah,
challenges kind of thing.
I mean, as a doctor, I am slightly dubious about this. I'm not saying it's necessarily more of a health risk than the whole send the great public off with fireworks and sticks of dynamite to let off, but yeah, I kind of feel like, yes, possibly this could go tragically wrong here.
Well, there are photos, and given the photo I've got here, it's actually supervised by the mascot itself, which I mean means everything should be going fine, I
Well,
assume.
if you're being supervised by a giant snowman, much better. What could possibly go wrong then?
Yes.
So when is this? Well, I'm assuming winter, but when in the winter is this carnival thing?
The depth of winter. So we're talking late January. So late, in fact, that they actually
Ah,
have like races across the nearby lake, where they actually take like boats and just sort of go as fast as they can across, not the lake, the river that's there. St. Lawrence, by Quebec City and all that, is a giant river. And so they'll actually just have races across it, where everybody's in boats, of course, because like you don't want to be running across on foot on that. But literally, it's just like a bunch of people in boats, just sort of pushing across the ice as fast as they can, and hoping that they'll be able to get to the other side before somebody else does. It's
so hang on, how so? Are they pushing the boat, or are they making the boats go on ice?
uh both. Because it is mostly ice at this time of year, they're basically essentially got one foot on the ice, just sort of pushing away with one foot, and they've got pairs on the boats themselves, and one person's on the other side too. But yeah, they're just kicking across the ice as hard as they can. And of course, if the ice happens to break because too many boats are going across, they're in a boat. So they just sort of on top and all that, and then just kind of, paddle a little bit with their feet and all that to try and get a little bit further ahead. You know. The goal, hopefully, is not to sort of go under the water.
Yeah, but I can see where being on top of the water slash ice would definitely be an advantage here.
Well, I mean,
So,
then typically
um,
temperatures are like -10, -20 at this time of year around there. So yeah, you want to stay out of the water.
so that is late January. It sounds to me like a good time for a festival. I mean, we have the usual sort of Christmas or solstice, if that's your want, or Hanukkah or whatever. But then there's all the rest of winter to get through, and it is very dreary. So I commend the Canadians for thinking up something cheerful to do at that time. And when is your Independence Day?
July 1st, we are very uncreative.
Aha. So you also get to let off fireworks in the actual summer. Not that I'm bitter or anything, but yeah, 5th of November, not really the best time of year to be out standing around watching stuff. Yeah, 1st of July. I will have to remember that because uh, whole other story, but I am looking for stuff to commemorate my t-shirts on different weeks. It's a thing I do with friends, so I'll have to find a time close to the Canada Independence Day to wear my Canada t-shirt. I'll make a mental note there. Okay, so I was going to talk about the specifically British festival of uh, we now call it Firework Night. It has in previous incarnations been called Bonfire Night, and prior to that, Guy Fawkes Night. And it has just been pointed out to me that this is actually mentioned in V for Vendetta, since it is many, many years since I watched V for Vendetta. Can either of you non-British but V for Vendetta watchers clue me in about what it actually said about Guy Fawkes Night or Firework Night?
Well, the titular character of V for Vendetta is a super soldier called V, and he plans to sort of reenact what Guy Fawkes had planned back in the day, which is essentially to sort of blow up the Parliament buildings of Britain. They went so far as to actually like set tunnels underneath the buildings themselves and even put explosives into place. But Guy Fawkes himself got caught before then and was tried for treason and hung and all that. And it sort of became a celebration ever after. I think there's also a mention of Guy Fawkes Night in Sandman, although I'm sort of working from memory there too. But that's just sort of my general would have sort of absorbed over time without actually sort of looking into it.
Yeah, that is basically how it all began. It was when James the Sixth of Scotland first took over as James the First of England, uh, and at the time there is this huge Indo-Christian rivalry because as you might well know one of the favourite pastimes of the Christian religion is to argue with other branches of the Christian religion as to who are the proper Christians and who aren't. And at the time, it was all very much between Protestants and Catholics, and so some Catholics were protesting against having a Protestant monarch. I think that was it. You know what? It's one of those things that actually the reasons for it get very much lost to anyone who isn't a historian. I have read about this in the past, but it was some time ago. But yes, they were protesting against whatever it was they were protesting about. It might have been laws oppressing Catholics, now that I think about it. And they dug tunnels into the Houses of Parliament with the plan to blow it up on the day that Parliament was opened. However, the people in charge were found, arrested, sentenced to death for treason, and since one of the main ones was a gentleman called Guido Fawkes, it became known for the next few centuries as Guy Fawkes Night. Now, when I was growing up, which was back in the 70s, it was still called Guy Fawkes Night, and the customary thing at that time was to make a guy, which is a sort of stuffed effigy type thing. You know, you'd get some old clothes, stitch them together, stuff them with cotton wool, make a head out of an old pair of tights or something, and little children would make their guys and drag their guys around on a trolley for a few weeks beforehand, pestering people for money, and the saying was penny for the guy. And these children would just accost you as you went into shops and say penny for the guy, and point at some stuffed creation that they had put together. Or in one particularly uninventive case that I remember, someone's doll that they basically just chucked on the trolley and were trying to claim they should get some money for. And it was just this recognised way of small children. It was like the equivalent of lemonade stands in the US, but very, very seasonal. You made a guy and you got some, you collected money for it. And then on the 5th of November, there would be a massive bonfire at the local park, and people would probably roast potatoes and sausages and stuff and let off fireworks, and they would chuck their stuffed guy onto the bonfire, and it would be basically burning Guy Fawkes in effigy. However, this whole thing of let us burn this burn effigies representing this actual historical person did go back quite a bit to Catholic / Protestant interfaction friction. As in, this was a subtext of let's hate on all Catholics. And you know, by the time that I was growing up, I think that had been probably pretty much lost in the mists of time, and no one particularly cared much about that anymore, and it was just a good excuse to go out and have a whacking great bonfire. And in the case of small children making guys, it was a good excuse for collecting money. But it was, I don't know to what extent it was that and to what extent it was bonfire related injuries making people realise actually this probably wasn't the best thing. But people have very, very much moved away from calling it Guy Fawkes Night, and looking back, it's now generally known as just as firework night, not even as bonfire night anymore. And there are generally big local firework displays and also people letting off fireworks in their back garden. But sadly, it is a very cold time of year to be standing around watching fireworks. So this is why I kind of envy you guys for having your big firework displays in July. But there you go, that is our British festival. The nice little poem about it, which we all learned growing up, which goes, remember, remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. I see no reason that gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Was that in V for Vendetta?
It was indeed. You'll be happy to know.
There you go. So you've heard that one before. That is again not very commonly known, and these days it is mostly an excuse to let off fireworks and cheer up a cold November night a bit.
Yeah.
And
What's
that's,
up with the masks? So the masks showed up in before V for Vendetta came out. The guys that were protesting Scientology that got organized on 4chan or whatever, wore the masks, like the Guy Fawkes mask. Like where did that end? Where did that enter into
the
things, or was
mask
that like?
is, I believe this must be the creation of the V for Vendetta author, because it is not part of anything that I've
Okay.
ever, any sort of firework night custom of which I've ever been aware.
Yeah, I
It's
believe that's precisely the
the
story.
comic that the movie was based on came first, then the 4chan protesters, and then the movie later on. So I guess yeah, it could have been the comic creator. Yeah.
Yeah, and Alan Moore, no less, was the
Hmm.
comic creator, so worth mentioning that.
Thank you. I had no idea who it was. I'm sure I must have known at some point. Okay, so onto a different subject. I think since I believe we all rather unoriginally grew up celebrating Christmas rather than other winter festivals. Any dissent on that one?
Not really, no. No, sort of
Damn, I was
nominally,
hoping
vaguely
someone would have
Christian,
this.
but yeah.
Sorry, what's that?
Just a nominally, vaguely Christian kind of upbringing, even though we never really went to church or anything like that. So
Yeah, we weren't even vaguely Christian, but we still, as I said, did secular Christmas. What about you, Great American Satan? You don't have any great stories of celebrating Diwali as a child or anything?
No, that would have been October anyways, right? But no, you're so
Hmm.
I think I mentioned this a few
I'm
times in
sorry,
podcasts.
great
Like
ignorance on my part. It was like the one thing I could think of, other than Hanukkah, which seems pretty obvious. Any
I
memories of celebrating Hanukkah?
I didn't know about Diwali being in October until I was working as a security guard at a place that where there were some folks, the Hindu folks that worked there, and like so occasionally they'd show up in October. We show up and look wearing cool clothing. So
Hmm. So is
yeah.
it always round about October? I mean, is it a solar-based year in the Hindu calendar, or is it uh, like the deal they have in Muslim calendars, where it's just 12 lunar months, and so it rotates round and round compared to the solar year?
No freaking idea.
So, damn, I was hoping I'd get some sort of interesting fact there. I mean, I know enough about Hanukkah to talk about it, but I've never actually celebrated it. So, uh, we're not quite at that stage. So, is there anything about Canadian Christmases or US Christmases that's particularly country specific to your knowledge?
Well, the closest I can think of is a local tradition we've got around here. Obviously, being, within Alberta, we're pretty close to where Banff is and all that. And there is sort of like that is obviously the big sort of tourist area and all that. So they have their own various traditions and all that. The one which sort of comes to mind the most is at Lake Louise, which most international users most international people would be aware of if they're aware of, the Canadian parks at all. It's, a very famous one where we literally just sort of bus in tourists from all over the world to sort of explore and enjoy it. And during the Christmas seasons and all that, Lake Louise is literally right next to Lake Louise. And so what they'll actually do is they'll actually just, brush off the snow for a part of it and turn it into a bit of an ice rink. And then, set up some big floodlights. And right next to the Chateau Lake Louise, the big fancy hotel right next to it, people will sort of come out and actually play little games of pickup hockey and all that on the ice, or even just skate around sometimes. There's also an associated ice sculpture festival as well too, which you can imagine is quite spectacular, given that you're surrounded by mountains on three sides. So, yeah,
That sounds good.
I've been intending to go for ages, but I mean, it's also in the dead of winter, several hours drive away, and it's like, do I want to? Like, literally, this is just to hang out with people and all that, when I could be out snowshoeing someplace else. If
It's
I'm
a big freaking continent, and I think that's like something that a lot of people in Europe can forget from time to time. So I don't know, it's hard to say, but like I mean I have like somebody from it's just like, to get across the province or state that you're in is just like the equivalent of going like halfway across Europe. So it's like it's a big trip.
That's true.
Yeah.
There is so much of your countries.
Well, and it's wild, and it's different in different spots too. I've also traveled quite a bit through the eastern U.S., and honestly, that place feels cramped. You know, there's like you go from one to literally towns will butt up against each other and all that, and it'll seem like one giant metropolitan area. Oh, you know, you guys are just so clustered together and all that, and this is the United States we're talking about here.
Concrete rivers. It's like, and of course that's population density is still after all this time much greater on the East Coast than it is on the West.
Mhm.
But in urban places like are just connect together like cancer tissue, like big gray smears from sea to shining sea.
Hmm. HJ, I just thought of something I wanted to ask you, vaguely on theme. For New Year's at midnight, does Canada have some sort of iconic image that is shown on television screens nationwide at midnight?
I believe we do. We do have our own countdown as well. This is distinct from the sort of, Big Bang, it's not the Big Bang, but the New York one with the Big Apple and all that, which falls and all that. There is a Canadian version of that. I must confess that I long since sort of grew out of that tradition and actually got so disenchanted with it. I literally, made a point of pride of sleeping through New Year's just because I could, you know. Big middle finger to, being social to everybody around then. So yes, we do have something like that. I
Yeah.
cannot give you much details on it.
Because in the UK it's Big Ben. The TV camera will switch to a shot of Big Ben at midnight for the chimes and the striking 12. Although usually before you get to the end of the 12 strikes, you'll have the cheering cutting in and all the noise coming in from the celebrators in Trafalgar Square, and then you'll have people singing Auld Lang Syne, of course. And I believe in the US, as you say, it's the ball dropping at New Year's. Is that right? In New York Times Square. Is that the one?
Yeah. So there's that. The I that It's kind of funny because like I think that every state's probably going to do a little bit different. Some of them might show that there was a event like TV event associated with that used to be hosted by Dick Clark. It was like New Year's Rockin' Eve, where they play music leading up to the ball drop. But in other places like have their own local fireworks, particularly fireworks shows. So it's like I think 4th of July verse played for by the Ivers seafood restaurant chain in the greater Seattle area. They do a bunch of fireworks over Lake Union. It's like and then just photograph fireworks and play crappy music and while your local TV personalities like advertise stuff. Um and then yeah, like of course some people will ignore all that stuff and actually be out like watching fireworks live. Some people with the Lake Union, they actually like go out on boats or like hang out at marinas to watch that or go to Gasworks Park. And then like what else? Or in my town, Auburn, Washington, about halfway between Seattle and Tacoma, the up in the Muckleshoot Casino, or excuse me, Muckleshoot Indian Reservation area where they have the casino, so kind of up on the hill. And they was I guess it's in an informal tradition. They take the fireworks that did not sell and they detonate them all at once. And that's like I don't think that's like I don't know if they still do that. It's been a minute since I saw it. I just moved back to town, but it's that was always some lovely chaos. If you can see it, I guess. Um, so different like the ball drop isn't as big of a deal as you might think. But like we use a lot of variety of different things. There's a kind of on the interpersonal level. There's big explosions, but there's also like the tradition of getting drunk as hell. There's also this idea for singles that it's like you're not kissing somebody on New Year's Eve, then you're gonna be alone for the next year. So you got also like there's a pressure to make out as well as to get drunk and also blow things up.
Mm.
Do you have the first footing tradition in the US or Canada?
First footing? No, I'm afraid not. I've never even heard of
The
that one.
whole thing about having someone tall and dark be the first cross the threshold in the new year, carrying a lump of coal for good luck.
Nope, nothing like that.
Absolutely not. That sounds madcap.
This is an actual tradition. I mean, hardly anyone actually. When I say hardly anyone, most of my New Year's have been spent just at home, not doing very much. And I've only once actually been at a party on New Year's where they did in fact decide who would be the person who the person present who best combined being tall with being dark and got him to be the first person across the threshold, and that was the 1999 to 2000 New Year. That was again at a Old Fan Pratchett celebration, and the first footer was the person who had become my husband. So there we go. That's the one time I've actually been at a place where they did first footing, where they do first footing. I don't think, as far as I know, people tend to bother with it very much, but it's a kind of custom people have heard of. Anyway, so on back to the subject of different customs or different things you have in different countries and not in other places. Satan, would you say there are any traditions in the US that don't seem to be the case in other countries at Christmas, or indeed in any other festivals you can think of?
So I think that it might be cool to get a sort of a more holistic view of what it's like at the holidays in different countries on this deal. Like, because like it's easy to like hear about the broad one or two specific things and they stand out and you kind of assume that they're bigger deals than they are, or you just don't really know about some other little things. So but I think that America is in a unusual position here because we've exported so much of our culture via Hollywood that I think most people in the world probably have a pretty good familiarity with what Christmas here is about and how it's done. I don't, but in terms of the actual experience of it for people, of course, it varies with their class and their location, and whether or not they're from an immigrant culture that has their own traditions and so on, right? For me, as I mentioned before, I was like on another podcast. My family like did Christmas gifts, but not birthday gifts, at least at first, and then like gradually they up to their parenting game, I guess. But so the gifts were pretty much the most important thing, right? You look like this is the one time a year that you're going to potentially get something, so you get hype
Priorities.
and
I absolutely agree with this. Sorry, do go ahead.
yeah. So you like you can't sleep all night, and then you like get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's like make your parents mad, and get into ripping up some of that stuff. Sneaking peeks at like what we're finding out where their parents got this stuff hid and sneaking peeks at it. That would be like a pretty normal type of deal here as well. By the time I got to being like late teenagers, this was the last time we did it. I think I was probably like 16 where we did it up. And I was just like, it kind of felt like so pointless. It's like, you know exactly what you're gonna get. And it's like, it's just a delay. Like, it's just like, oh, this is the time of year. Well, I'll wait to get the things that I want to get, right? And it's like it just felt so pointless by now in my life. I just like still to this day don't I don't like getting gifts. I mean, I'm really hard to shop for. People want to get have this pressure thing going, like they need to psychologically like feels they obliged. I got to get people gifts. That's what this is all about. But I'm like, if I want something, I'll get it for myself. Why like play this like weird game of being like, oh, what might you like wanting? Oh, maybe I'll get that, maybe I won't, and then look out to wrap it in paper for no reason. It's I don't know. I just find it kind of asinine and tiring. But
So you're telling us that Christmas is, or at least the present aspect of it, is not something you're that interested in.
I'm not alone in this either. I think
No,
there's you don't hear about it much, but I do think a lot of people actually get like that, where it's just like, wait a minute, what are we even doing here? This is kind of nonsense. And then once you've like tumbled to this forbidden knowledge, this dark revelation, like Lovecraft style, then from that day on, you'll always be like one of those people that's really hard to buy presents for. So sadly, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, we've sort of got something similar going on with my family as well too. It's over the years we've gradually gotten far and far, we've sort of drifted apart and done our separate things and all that. And so we're nowhere near as sort of regular when it comes to these sorts of holiday things as we used to. There's always the annual tradition of just trying to schedule the holidays. As various other families are like, okay, we want some time, during Christmas to do this, we want some time during Christmas to do this. And it just doesn't have the same sort of impact it does before. I still, try and do some things as well too. Like I've got a very distinctive sort of wrapping style that I use for that, but we've also got sort of like Secret Santa kind of things going on to try and make sure that everybody still sort of gets gifts for each other and all that. But things like birthdays and all that have sort of drifted away. And I've also been burned by, me being like, okay, here's my list of things that I want and all that, and people just sort of ignoring it and doing their own thing and getting me gifts which just did not really sort of suit things at all. So for the longest time, I've basically just all been like, okay, gift cards, blah, blah, blah. And that way I can sort of get pretty much exactly what I want.
Makes life simple. I always ask for Amazon vouchers, thereby unfortunately propping up an appalling capitalist organisation, an appalling exploitative capitalist organisation. So I really shouldn't be doing that, but they do bloody good deals on Kindle books.
Not kidding.
Yeah, that's my confession. So, back to the topic of things that are different between different countries. I gather that these things would not really be things you're very aware of in the US or Canada, from what you were saying. They're Christmas crackers, and from what we were discussing prior to the podcast, I gather that these are not really something you have over in your continent.
They're
Closest
definitely
equivalent we got in the United States is advent calendars, I think.
We do have advent calendars.
Yeah.
What sort
so
of
yeah, you get
advent calendars a big thing over there?
you can get them like in a drugstore or whatever, but like or Walmart, but like they're not something that everybody does. It's just be like a little cardboard calendar thing for the month of December. You just pop open each of the days and there'll be like a candy or something in there, and that's it. And then I don't know about this cracker business. Oh,
yeah, the crackers are completely different. The crackers
something that struck me funny on the crackers thing is that like in we call them cookies in the United States, but like there is one type of cookies that we're just like people are just obliged to get around the season, although there's no ritual associated with it, and that's like we call them Danish cookies. Like that's a shame Christian was not able to be here tonight because it'd be kind of funny to hear what he thinks about those cookies. It's like is
this actually a Danish thing? These Danish cookies.
Yeah.
I'm now really curious. Yeah, I wish Christian could have been here. Anyway, Christmas crackers. Yes, these are things you have at a Christmas meal. And what you do, can you see the sort of general structure of these? It's a sort of cylindrical shape with two ends to it.
Like nunchaku.
Sorry?
Like nunchaku.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what a nunchaku looks like.
Also known as nunchucks, the traditional weapon of the ninja, the shinobi nin.
These are made out of cardboard and would not make very good weapons, but I do not know whether they're the same shape as nunchucks. Anyway, what you do is you grab one end, the person next to you grabs the other end. If you really want to be coordinated about this, you do this whole thing where everyone crosses their arms over and makes a whole chain of each person taking one end of the cracker and pulling it. When you pull them, there is a thing inside that actually has a trace of gunpowder in, or something. I don't know what it is they use, and it makes a popping sound. And then this stuff falls out of the cylinder in the middle, and what you traditionally have in there is a paper crown, a slip of paper with a truly terrible Christmas themed joke on it. Think really, really awful puns. And I have deliberately blocked them all from my mind, so I cannot give you any examples off the top of my head. And sometimes I'll have some kind of vaguely interesting fact about something as well. And there will be some kind of gift, although the quality of it will vary hugely as the price of the cracker. For the cheap ones, you get some tiny little bit of plastic tat, and for the expensive ones, you might get something like a vaguely decent looking necklace, or a little mirror, or something actually nice. And sometimes you'll get little cheap magic trick type things, card tricks. There are all kinds of things you can find inside them, but basically traditionally what you do is you pull the crackers before dinner, you put the paper crowns on. They're called paper hats, they are always crown shaped, for dinner, and you read out the terrible jokes and everyone groans at them. And if you have facts of interest on them, you read those out as well. Oh, and sometimes they have charades to do. Do you guys do charades? I don't think I'll even try and explain charades. Charades are just one of those things you're probably better off not knowing about ever. But yeah, that is what you do with Christmas crackers.
Goodness. Yeah, it's good to hear.
So there you go.
It's good to hear it's kind of the same over there as over here. Again, this is not something which is universal, or I think even popular within Canada. But as it turns out, I've got a little bit of British background in my family, and they have been a staple of my family for literally decades at this point. In fact, if you really don't like them, here's a nice little bit of a tip. Generally speaking, when you pull them apart, you're supposed to actually like pinch the middle and all that to make sure that you've got the proper friction to make sure the inner firecracker goes away. If instead you just sort of wrap your finger around, but make sure you don't pull that, you don't pull on your side, and the inner firecracker never actually goes off. So you basically sabotage the other person right next to you. I have been doing that. Don't tell my family this, but I've been doing that consistently for decades because I just hate the little poppy things and all that. The sound drives me nuts.
So strictly between the three of us and the, I don't know, anyone watching this, anyone. So yeah, your secret is probably fairly safe. Right, I'm trying to think if there's any other. Oh yeah, I know what else I was going to say about crackers. They're great for setting records. Basically, just try and get the greatest number of people possible together for a cracker pull, and if you can get enough people together, you get a world record. And I was part of one such record back in the 90s, and I still have a badge somewhere saying that I was part of a record-breaking Christmas cracker pull, which has been made obsolete at least twice since then, and probably more times as people just get together with more and more bigger and bigger groups of cracker pullers and larger
like
things.
Hands Across America.
Sorry?
I was like Hands Across America, some charity.
I don't know if anyone's done a cracker pull across America yet. That would be a pretty cool thing. But yeah, the cleanup afterwards would be atrocious.
God, yeah.
Right. So, any last stories of festivals gone by or of any sort? But we haven't talked about the most obvious specifically US festival. There's this thing in November where you all celebrate the bit where you took over the land and killed off the indigenous people. And no, it's not called Fuck All You Lot, We're Taking Over. It's actually called Thanksgiving. Have you got any Thanksgiving stories?
Oh man. Well, ironically, we actually have something
That's
very
you,
similar.
Satan. I know you've got a different one. Sorry.
We've actually got something. We also have Thanksgiving up here in Canada with the exact same meaning and all that. But just to be different, we do it 1 month before the Americans. So kind of like how our Independence Day is just a little bit before. We just had to preempt the Americans just a wee little bit with our little genocidal celebration. So we got that on you.
Okay,
Fantastic.
I take back what I said earlier about advent calendars being the closest thing we have to Christmas crackers. Thanksgiving, there's a tradition that is at least remotely similar. Um, the wishbone or furculum of the turkey is
Oh
like
yeah, we do that. Sorry, go on.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's like it's each person grabs one, pop it open, make a wish, pop it open. Whoever gets the larger piece gets their wish. That's what they say.
But no paper hats or terrible jokes or plastic tat involved.
The jokes are more of a summer thing here. There's a brand of popsicles and ice cream called Good Humor. It's sold out of little ice cream trucks, roll around to neighborhoods and sell to the children. And Good Humor brand has jokes on the popsicle stick. So I tend to think of those things as popsicle stick humor. Oh, what type of
sorry, go on.
yeah, how does a dinosaur stay in shape? They do Rexercise. Ha 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 ha.
Now, this is totally taking me back because we had these on ice lollies when I was a child. So again, going back to the 70s, and you'd have the joke on the stick, and then you'd have to eat the lolly to get to the other end of the stick where you had the
There you go. Same thing.
the punchline to the joke. So those are the days, eh? Right. Any last stories of festivals gone by, guys?
Well, I mean, I can maybe share what it was like to have to celebrate Christmas or winter, I guess, on a farm. Yeah, this is maybe something that you might not expect from a city slicker such as myself. But yes, in fact, for part of our annual sort of winter celebration and all that, we would drive for literally an entire day to go back to the grandparents' place and hang out on their farm. And this the usual sort of festivities and all that. We had a big giant Ukrainian kind of Christmas with all the trimmings and all that associated. And, the giant, extended family would all come in and hang out. Standard presents and all that. Even, we would have, someone, the grandfather dress up as Santa Claus and all that. I most remember it for the video games, honestly. But there are two sort of traditions that we sort of had at that point. This farm was on a bit of a hill just above a river. And for most of the part, it was just like steep cliff and all that. So you can't really sort of go down to sort of get to it in any sort of safe way. But the best way to actually do it was a road which my grandparents had created ages ago, which sort of went down a bit of a hill and all that and turned around, and you could then get decent access that you could actually drive like a vehicle up and down reliably and all that. And not surprisingly, in winter, this thing got a ton of snow on it, and being reasonably long, it was always turned into a bit of a toboggan track. And so we would do this every winter. Well, they would sort of pack it down a little bit and all that. We would grab our sleighs and just race down that thing and all that, and just see how fast we could go. And surprisingly fast, to be honest. It was decently steep, and once it had actually been packed down, you could build up a decent amount. I think I remember one Christmas when I was really young. They actually went above and beyond and built like a little bit of a turn around at the very end. So it was like a proper banked turn and everything. So you can actually sort of, I remember one time sort of scooting all the way down, going down this bank turn and just sort of flying, at high speed towards the trees, just part of the forest nearby, to prevent me from like bonking my head on a tree and all that. The grandparent was enlisted to actually catch us as we flew off the end of that, which, as you can imagine, given that there was a sleigh involved, is not necessarily the wisest thing overall. But yeah, in later years, what they would actually do is, oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering what kinds of injuries occurred. I feel professional interest here.
A lot, in general, but I mean, there is a second thing that we would sort of have, since, this being a farm and all that, we had actually both a motorized tricycle, with big giant wheels and all that, which was technically made illegal later on. And and we would actually use that to traverse. And being, with these big giant, puffy tires and all that, it got great traction in winter. So sometimes, you definitely don't want to sort of drive it too much up and down that hill over in winter. But, being a long, steep hill, it was a bit treacherous to sort of bring your sleigh all the way back. You just hike and hike and hike forever. So, you know, sometimes the grandparents would actually just like, we'll just grab the trike, you know, put the sleighs on the back and then just drive you up. You know, and then you'd have this nice sort of warm vehicle sort of to help convey you up. Well, I do remember one time when we were driving up, they got a little, I think the grandparent who was driving it got a little too, got a little too twitchy on the throttle and actually wound up flipping the trike over backwards on top of the occupants. That was not good. Now, this being the snow,
Christmas
nobody
is
was
a lot
really
more
injured.
tragic that year.
No deaths, no injuries. Well, no major injuries. Certainly a bit of, you know, injured pride and all that. But as you can imagine, when you've got this sort of mechanized thing at your disposal and it's capable of, you know, 40, 50 kilometers an hour, that's not the only thing you'd want to do with it in winter. And so we also had tradition that, you know, rather than just sort of going up and down this hill all the time, we would take this tricycle and attach like a giant inner tube or a sleigh to the very back of it and just take off, you know, and drive around. The farm itself actually had the sort of donut-like shape with a garden in the center and all that, which you could just sort of, you know, do circles or literal donuts around if you so desired. And so, you know, what would often happen is someone would hop on the trike, you know, we'd attach things on the back, and they would just drag someone around on that circle, which, as you can imagine, led to all sorts of fun injuries. Like, I think literally one of my sisters actually plowed headfirst into a concrete barrier at one point, which probably not good for you in the long term, but she seems to be okay, you know? Yeah, and, you know, obviously,
Oh,
this is also sort of in the main donut area too, but this is on a farm. There are nice farm fields out there. And oftentimes, you know, the snow can be kind of rough and all that later in winter and all that. So sometimes they would take the thing out there and then just crank the throttle at full speed and whip you around on this inner tube. Now, I was way, way too much of a chicken to sort of engage in that, but suffice to say, there are many
I
instances
think I'd
of
reframe that as way too sensible if I were you.
yes, but yes, a lot of friends and relatives basically sort of bought it by sort of, you know, flipping at high speed or, you know, being crashed headfirst into a snowbank or something like that out there. And it was all grand fun on a motorized vehicle which was made illegal several decades ago. So thank goodness the statute of limitations has long since
Ah,
expired.
those were the days. Child protection services and or social services, we call it, not yet reached the quite the same levels they have done these days.
Indeed.
Right, Great American Satan. Have you got any last minute, any last stories of festivals gone by?
I like wonder if the Canadians are a little bit more used to snow, making them like less likely to have terrible injuries off of that kind of foolishness than in the United States. Because like it doesn't snow very often where I live with the kind of low elevation and stuff like that, and people have done that kind of stuff. You know, oh, tie a inner tube to the back of the truck and drag the kids down the road or whatever. And there are fatalities like when that sort of thing happens here. Like I mean, I've like it seems like every time there's a snow and people decide, hey, this could be fun, people die. Like if there's a snow and it like hits in such a way that people are like more like this is a monumental traffic inconvenience and they just like hunker down, nothing bad happens. But if anybody gets an idea that it's fun, it seems like people get dead, which is like so careful people. Um Unless you're Canadian. Um yeah. And then okay, so as far as like Christmas goes though, um let's see. Yeah, it's I think I think I'll just like talk a little bit about like that last year. There were a few other kind of I think there were a few other abortive attempts at sort of a family occasion afterwards, but that was like the last one I remember much of before my oldest niece was born. We were living in this like terrible ghetto apartment where every this where like a stretched limousine would pull up to the curb to pick up a bundle of laundry that somebody left on the corner. And like we had like so many fleas in that apartment that I developed a immunity to flea irritant in their skin. So they don't make me itch anymore. It was we had a couple of pets that ended up being maltreated. It was a all around egregious time. I used to got really into the geeky escapism type of stuff, namely role playing games, which I would occasionally shoplift from the local hobby shop that's no longer in business, probably because I shoplifted all their role playing games. When they weren't having their little like glass craft projects stolen by meth heads to convert into pipes. Um, but yeah, that was like I remember it was like that was so I was into that stuff, and I'd like say you make your Christmas list. Oh, here's the stuff I want to get. Put something on the list that I wanted to get. So whatever role playing game book I was hot for right that minute. And then I found out where the stuff Christmas gifts were being hid and peaked, and when confirmed, lo and behold, it's there. And then it was just like, and then waiting to get it, and then it was just like, well, yeah, that was that experience I was talking about, where I just go like, why am I waiting for something that I want? Just get what I need, however I can get it, right? Um, so but then role playing games too. That was like another one of those things that was funny. Get in big into that stuff for a while, and then like that you're getting somebody else's idea of like, oh, look at this magical fantasy setting that this person came up with. Here's the source books for it with all the cool new character classes and stuff like that. Then you get to a certain point in your level in your creativity and maturity as a creative person, and you go like, wait a minute, I could just be making up my own stuff. I don't need somebody else's role playing game system or setting like creative ideas. And then it's like now I don't even have those to look forward to. So I just like I just Christmas. What's the point? The reason for the season is Jeezy Pete's, and that guy, he's like up there on his stick, we're getting snowed on in the Middle East. And then you like I don't know. I I don't know. I don't know. Merry Christmas. God bless us, everyone.
And on that note, right, I think we're about ready to wrap up. So just before we do, it's the time when we plug our blogs a bit. H.J. Hornbeck, do you want to tell the world about the infinitesimally small fraction of the world that's actually watching this about your blog?
Indeed, I do have a blog over at Reprobate Spreadsheet. As I say pretty much every close, I do promise I'll be coming back to it at some point. I've actually got like 5 or 6 different topics I want to blog about. It's just I don't have time. I am way too busy at the moment, so give me a week or two to sort of push things off. At minimum, I've got to talk about what exactly the finances are when it comes to our Mastodon instance and all that. Don't worry. There's also controversies as well too that I want to get into and kick up. One of which may actually piss off PZAD. So hopefully, at some point,
Okay.
I'll actually get back into blogging.
I'm fascinated. I look forward to this. Satan, hello, you're muted. Want to unmute to tell the world about your blog?
My blog is freethoughtblogs.com/gas. And there you can read about horrific nightmares or random thoughts about pigeons. And in theory, atheism.
Wait, good thoughts or bad thoughts about pigeons?
But pigeons are lovely.
Good, lovely. Sorry, I live with a husband whose answer to everything is throw it at pigeons, and a teenager who has just decided they absolutely love pigeons. So I got them the Pigeon Fancier's Guide for their birthday. So yeah, I'm siding on the pro pigeon side here. Sorry, but was that it? Did I interrupt you? That's it. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that's it. That's it.
lovely. Okay, my blog is Geeky Humanist and mostly contains snarky book review type things. I'm not a massively frequent poster, but I'm there plugging away, and every so often I'll get a post up. So I hope you'll check out our blogs and the others on Free Thought blogs, which are probably much more erudite and interesting and better populated. And I think that's it. So have a merry whatever festival you celebrate, and a happy New Year if you're celebrating a new year, and an enjoyable and fulfilling month until we meet again. And goodbye all. Goodbye.